Welcome everybody, and thank you very much for taking the time to be here. This important meeting, important conference. I'm very pleased that PG&E once again opened up their doors, literally in this case, not just figuratively, to host this conference. I'm thankful, of course, of Jim Wunderman and the Bay Area Council for their stewardship and leadership as it relates to the environment, and of course, Jack, Asian Society, we thank you for convening this important conference. I think we can all agree that the world consumption of energy is the sum of all local consumption. And so when I look at the issue of global climate change, when I frame this debate, I think of it from a local context. Of course, that local lens may be self-evident as a mayor, but nonetheless, I think it's important to break down where our greenhouse gas emissions emit from. And it's indeed important to recognize that we need to reconcile something that not only the United States understands, but notably now China is increasingly understanding, and that's the mass urbanization that's taking shape globally. 1 million to 1.5 million people every single week moving into urban cores. For the first time in human history, we saw more people on the planet living in urban centers than suburban and rural areas. First time in human history. That just happened a few years ago. And already those cities, these urban areas, are already consuming 75% of the Earth's natural resources. And now new numbers just came out, emitting now in excess of 80% of the greenhouse gas emissions. So you cannot, with respect, talk about the issue of global climate change without talking about green cities, or the importance of green cities in terms of the narrative of reforming our agenda in terms of addressing this serious risk and crisis. And so as a mayor, we have tried to do a lot of things and tried to lead the way. To say, though, we know is not to do. Jack referenced our local global climate action plan. We, in essence, when the United States decided to pull away from the Kyoto protocols, when we decided to advocate some real leadership on the issue of climate change, cities like San Francisco came together across their differences. Large cities as well as small cities, but no city went as aggressively, went as far than the city and county of San Francisco. We put together a local global climate action plan to roll back our CO2 emissions 20% below 1990 levels by 2012. In essence, twice as far as the Kyoto protocols call for. We asserted that proposition. We didn't necessarily know how we'd get there, but here's the good news. Just a few months ago, right there, Crissy Field, right next to the Golden Gate Bridge, we announced with the head of our Sierra Club, Carl Pope, and head of NRDC and Environmental Defense Fund, all these environmental organizations, that San Francisco, having become the first city to submit its greenhouse gas emissions to a third party for validation. Never trust, with respect, politicians and numbers. For a third party for validation, was able to unveil that we have already reduced our CO2 emissions 6% below 1990 levels, and we did that last year in 2008. I say this not to impress, but to impress upon you the point that I came to share with you. It was easy. It was not difficult. We saw our population grow in the city and county of San Francisco by estimates north of 100,000 during that period of time. More visitors visiting our city each and every year in the last 5 years than any time in our city's history. More business development and construction in our city in decades. Yet we were able to dramatically reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. How do we do that? Well, we initiated and advanced the most aggressive recycling program in the United States of America. In fact, new numbers will come out in a few weeks. I have pledged, unequivocally pledged not to share them with you today, though I'm really desirous to do so, but my staff will be furious. But already we're at 70% recycling rates. Think about that, because in 1996, about the time I got in the local government, we were only at 35%. By the way, that was a very high bar. Was already the highest in the country, 35%. We had some ambitious goals to get to 50%. People said that simply can't be done. And here we are today at 70+% in the city and county of San Francisco, on our way to 75%, we hope, by the end of next year, and to 100% diversion strategy by 2020 to the goals that Jack referenced in terms of becomes a carbon neutral city in terms of our municipal output. And we've done that interestingly by doing some things that have been, for some, a little more radical and controversial. We banned plastic bags, for example, but so did China recently. And we're very enthusiastic because it basically validated our efforts here locally. We got aggressive on styrofoam takeout containers. We are going after plastic water bottles. 1 billion of them a year end up in our landfill. Talk about environmental waste. We also are about to acquire composting in San Francisco. We actually already are reaching out to restaurants, picking up their fats, oils, and grease, and we're converting them to biodiesel. We were the first big city in the United States to convert our entire diesel fleet to biodiesel. Working with Google and Stanford University also to pick up their waste and convert it into energy. We set forth, as Jack referenced, the most aggressive local solar incentive program in the country. And so not only do you get the benefit of California's leadership in terms of solar incentives and the federal government's tax credits related to solar, but we have provided the opportunity for people to get up to $10,000 local rebates for solar, and we're about to launch our initiative to finance the difference. So not one penny will come out of pocket, not just for solar, interestingly. Tens of millions of dollars will be made available in a revolving loan fund that will end up going on in terms of the leverage will go on your property taxes, or rather be secured by your property and amortized over the course of your mortgage and your loans. We will also be providing those for people that want to do energy retrofits. Again, not just solar, they can do weatherization, they can do all kinds of other interesting things, including urban wind generation, because we're pushing an urban wind strategy as well. I saw recently Michael Bloomberg picked up on some of the work we were doing here in San Francisco along the same lines. Interestingly, speaking of Bloomberg, this is the competition that we all should be engaged in. You may know in New York City, they started to convert their entire yellow taxi cab fleet to green cabs. That got a lot of attention. What got no attention was a year and a half prior, San Francisco launched the first initiative of its kind in America. The problem was, he announced it, for those of you who are familiar with the Today Show in America, Bloomberg announced it on the Today Show. I announced our initiative a year prior on local cable channel 26, or maybe it was 28. No one was paying attention. Needless to say, we led the way in terms of alternative vehicles as well. We already have more municipally owned alternative vehicles than any city in this country. We're proud of that. We have 2/3 of our public transit on alternative fuels. We want to get to 100% very shortly. We have been very aggressive, as Jack referenced, this local carbon fund to do offsets. We talk about buying offsets, but you don't know what you're buying because they end up somewhere in the abyss. Where we want to do offsets where you can actually buy. You go. In fact, there's a pilot program at our airport. If you want to travel, you can press in where you're going. We'll analyze what your greenhouse gas consumption will be, and you can buy offsets right there at the airport at a kiosk, and those dollars go right back into your own city, into programs so you can see the manifestation of those offset in terms of benefits to your own local community. And we think this is a potential model for others as well. I could go on and give you the sum of 150 initiatives, and I barely exaggerate 150 initiatives from our Energy Watch programs, our energy efficiency strategies. PG&E has been a big partner in that, which have been prolific. Over 4,000 small businesses. In fact, we reached that milestone a few weeks ago at Lombardi Sports here in San Francisco, our 4,000th business. They're going to save $39,000 this year for just doing what we told them they should have been doing 5 years ago, and they started doing the math saying we should have paid attention and just swapping out their light bulbs and doing some more energy efficiency work, of which we funded most of the upfront capital. Things, again, that are easy to do, that are making a big difference. But no more significant area, from my humble perspective, than the issue of green buildings. And I know that's the purpose of this conference, and I want to just close with the focus here.